Welcome, everyone. I'd like to begin tonight's program by acknowledging and paying respect to the fact we in Philadelphia are located on the lands of the Lenni Lenape people. My name is Layla Cartier, Executive Director of CraftNOW Philadelphia, and I am thrilled to bring First Friday Preview to you virtually again this month. Since we have started doing these at the beginning of the pandemic, they have evolved into a really nice casual industry night where those working in the field can convene and share what they're working on as people start to return to the galleries for First Friday. Plus, we can expand beyond Old City Philadelphia with our presenters and the audiences we reach. I'm going to take care of some housekeeping. I want to let you know that we have enabled the closed caption feature tonight with help from our friends at Disability Pride PA. So you can click on the CC button on the bottom of your screen for the auto transcription. And it's not going to be perfect. It never is. Sometimes it says some funny things, but it might be helpful for some. Please mute yourself to avoid background noises while our presenters are talking. You are invited to put any questions or comments in the chat so that we can filter through them and share them, hopefully as we go. But also at the very end, we're going to invite you to unmute yourself and be part of a conversation to close out the program. So with those remarks, I am now going to introduce my friend KC at Manatani Stillworks, who has been teaching art to 11 to 14-year-olds all day and is now making delicious cocktails over on Passyunk Avenue as the tree is getting lit tonight out in the square. And he is going to share a delicious cocktail recipe with us.
All right, thank you very much and welcome everyone. Happy December. Hopefully you are all enjoying this nice, cooler, crisp weather. And with that, comes the lovely time of year for our hot cocktails. So tonight I'm going to share with you our Manatani specialty, our hot apple cider, which features Manatani's honey whiskey. This is available in your local state store, but also at our tasting room on Passyunk Avenue and our distillery out in Pottstown, PA. Normally when you're doing this big batch, it's a great time to share with friends and family that are over for the holidays. And I like to start by using my base cider and then adding it into my flat top. So I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 gallon of fresh organic apple cider. Secondly, this is an adult version of cider, so you want to make sure we get that whiskey in there. I'm going to be adding in 1 liter of the honey whiskey, but you're welcome to use whatever product you like. I like the honey whiskey because it does add a little bit of some extra sweetness as you start to balance out your hot cocktail. And like any hot cocktail, once you have your base and your alcohol added, then you're going to start to blend this to taste. And for us here at Manatani, we like to balance out the cocktail with a little bit of tartness from some citrus flavors. That's going to be some fresh lemon juice. I'm going to use 1/2 quart of lemon juice here. And we didn't want our honey whiskey to be too sweet right off the bat, so I'm going to add in a little bit of additional honey, about 1 cup to be exact. That'll just add a little bit of extra sweetness to blend with that citrus. And once all your main ingredients are added, this is where the fun part for you guys comes in. You're going to be adding a spice profile, and this is where you get to be a little bit creative with your own tastes and impress your friends with some of your spice expertise. So for us here at Manatani, we like to add 2 spices to all of our ciders. We're going to be adding some fresh cinnamon sticks using the whole spice here, along with some cloves. I'm going to go ahead and add them. And then steep them in the cider as it heats up for somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour. We like to cook this cider up on about 300 degrees. And usually in the larger batches that we're doing, that takes about a half an hour to warm up. but you can leave it on for a steep to let those spices marinate for as long as you want. For those of you that enjoy a little bit of extra spice and kick, I also suggest some fresh peppers in this mix. I'm a big fan of serranos and jalapenos, but don't let those steep for too long, or you're going to find your mouth burning in more ways than one. As always, thank you guys for having us. Hopefully you'll get to stop by the tasting room soon and have a lovely holiday season.
Thank you so much. That is a really interesting idea to add peppers. I think I would have to trust you to make that cocktail for me to make sure it's done right. We'll see you next time. Remember, I have my own Manatoni Steelworks here. Everybody can get it at their state store and make their cocktails at home. Thank you so much, Casey. Great seeing you. With that, I have one more thing before I turn the mic over to Heather. Please join us next Tuesday, December 7th at 1 p.m. in the afternoon for our Capital Now program. We are focusing on grants being distributed through the Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator, recently launched by the PA Council on the Arts. The GPCA, Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance, will be joining us along with our friends at the Enterprise Center in West Philly to talk about the process of applying for these grants, which I believe are between $500 and $2,000. And the referral process will walk you through some business skills and business plan writing, and the whole point is to think like a creative entrepreneur through these and use the grants to put towards your business. So I'm going to post details and the registration link in the chat for you about that. And so now officially I will be turning this over to Heather Moqtaderi. My sincerest thanks to Heather. She is the director of Past Present Projects, and she has put together tonight's program for me. There are many brilliant artists and curators, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of them. So with that, I'll ask Heather to unmute herself and say hello.
Sure. Thank you, Layla. And good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this new and improved time of 7 p.m. for CraftNOW that's being tested out for the first Friday preview. I'm so excited to share all of this great work that we put together. So we'll just dive right in. Tabitha, I'll invite you to just start the process of sharing your screen while I introduce you. So everyone, Tabitha Arnold is a visual artist and political organizer who lives and works in Philadelphia. Her meticulous, tactile images speak to the radical past, an ongoing struggle that threads all working people. Tabitha is the 2021 Artist in Residence at Glen Foerd, where I met her as part of the selection panel for the residency. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Glen Foerd, Tabitha has it up on the screen right now. And this is a historic 19th century estate on the Delaware River. It's tucked into a secluded, tranquil natural environment, but it's conveniently located right next to the train if you want to take public transportation to go see Tabitha's work. And there's also plenty of parking. And I'll let Tabitha introduce the site and her work as part of the Artist in Residence program. So with that, I'd like to invite you, Tabitha, to unmute and share your work.
Thanks so much, Heather, for that great introduction. Yeah, I'm excited to share about my residency and the work that I have at Glen Foerd. I applied to do a residency, and one of the big things I was interested in about Glen Foerd was the Mentions collection to the industrial history of Philadelphia. So because I have a background in labor organizing, I wanted to portray that aspect of Glen Foerd's legacy in the work that I made. So this is the Vici Kid Leather Factory, which was how Robert Federer, who was the owner of Glen Foerd, made his wealth. So during my residency, I did a lot of research into leather manufacturing in general, and also this more specific conditions at Vici Kid. I learned that it was a very strenuous job and it smelled terrible because at the time, one of the main ingredients in leather refining was dog dung. So this was really considered one of the worst jobs you could do at the time, maybe comparable to coal mining. The people who ended up at this factory were often poor, unskilled immigrant laborers. A lot of them were Polish, and they were described as devout and humble and hardworking. They moved to Northeast Philly to work in the factory, which is in Frankfurt, and a lot of them lived in Bridesburg and attended a Polish Catholic church that's still there in that neighborhood. So I'll say more about that later as well. I also spent time learning about the owner of Glen Foerd, Robert Federer, and his daughter, Florence Tonner, and looking through their collection of art, looking through the many rooms of the mansion that you can visit. And I found them to also be very devout religious people. They even had their own prayer room, which I'm showing here. It has its own stained glass window. It has a Beluche prayer rug, which I found really interesting. I enjoyed looking at their art collection, especially textiles. So they had a lot of very religious textiles with really meticulous stitching work that you could go through and kind of discover yourself. I found a really interesting discovery type of feeling when I was in Glen Foerd, like I was unearthing little things throughout the estate during my time there. I found a lot of archaic leather equipment, and I even found this poem written by Florence Tonner that the staff at Glen Foerd didn't even know about because it was just taped into a book. So I found that really interesting as well. So I knew that I wanted to make a piece about leather. I thought it was a really fascinating parallel, how the leather process is disgusting and visceral and very difficult, but it's hidden away from the people who use leather. So we don't really think about that when we're buying a leather bag or shoes. So I thought about literally what would it be like to peel back the skin and kind of reveal that gross underbelly. And I thought that metaphor was really interesting compared to peeling back the really beautiful veneer of this estate at Glen Foerd to show the conditions of the people who created the wealth. So this is a test piece that I made to explore what I wanted to do for my first piece at the residency. So this is made in the medium of tufted rug. So I used a punch needle to make it, and that would be punching wool yarn through a loosely woven linen backing, and then finishing off the edges into whatever shape I want. And it has a very direct feeling, kind of similar to painting, which is what draws me to this medium. And I wanted to explore kind of a more amorphous shape and a more installation style than I had used in the past, where when I've made tufted rugs before, they've been sort of painting-like. So Glen Foerd was an opportunity for me to get more into an installation or more sculptural type of tufted rug. So this is some progress shots of the first piece I made. It's a very tedious process. It took about 160 hours to make the first piece. So I had a lot of time to think while I was making it. I used imagery from my research into the leather making process. I also used religious imagery as well. Thought a lot about my own evangelical upbringing and the parallels I could find between my relationship with religion and with capitalism. So I wanted to explore things like the Protestant work ethic and the prosperity gospel myth, which are very American outgrowths of Christianity. And I thought it was so interesting how they were very active for the Vichy kid workers, but also something that lives in my head today as someone who works and lives in America. So this is the first piece. Here's a kind of a glossy shot of it. And then here's a shot that I took while I was installing it in Glen Foerd. So it is in the prayer room. I'm working on a touch responsive component to the piece. It's not finished yet, but that would allow visitors to record and play back stories about work when they visit the piece. For now, you can visit it, and you can also see the poem by Florence Tonner, which is taped to the wall. You can peek into the piece and see it behind. It's a really interesting passage, I think, that reveals her romanticization of work and also her disconnection from it. So I'm definitely excited for you to go and read that yourself. And the second piece I created, I looked more broadly at the landscape of Northeast Philly. I've always loved the very mysterious buildings in this neighborhood that beckon back to the industrial era in Philadelphia. I also love when text appears in landscapes. So I'm always loving the inscribed smokestacks in this neighborhood, and the Goodbye Work sign, which is an artist installation that riffs on the Globe Dye Works sign in that factory. I also visited the Polish Catholic Church where many of the Vichy Kid workers congregated, and I felt very drawn to the cutouts on the doors. So I decided the next piece I would make would be a response to Rodin's Gates of Hell, which there's also a copy of this in Philadelphia. I wanted to explore themes of suffering and salvation and penance, and how I could put that in a context of labor and exploitation. So I was asking questions like, why doesn't religious morality apply to class struggle? What is hell, and who should actually go there? Or what are the consequences of creating a hellish environment on earth for the purpose of creating wealth? So a lot of big questions. This is the first gate of hell, some progress shots of creating that. I will eventually add a companion piece, but there is one at Glen Foerd currently. So in this progress shot, you can see that I left a lot of empty spaces to eventually become cutouts, kind of inspired by that church door. I was also very interested in the concept of stained glass and the way that stained glass windows and church doors, the way that they portray people as saints. I was really doing a lot of thinking about the concept of sainthood overall, thinking about who in history gets to be sanctified, how does class play into who we remember in history, and thinking about martyrdom. So if somebody dedicates their life and their work to a cause that's greater than them, doesn't that make them a martyr and therefore a saint? I also love factory windows, so I use them kind of interchangeably with kind of fancier stained glass windows in my piece. So this is a temporary installation view of the Gate of Hell. I drew a lot of inspiration from Byzantine iconography, and I wanted to play with a high contrast palette. And again, I wanted to use these cutouts. My intention was for the viewer to look at the piece, but also at the same time take in the details of Glen Foerd, so they would be brought together into one field of vision as you're looking at the piece. And I thought it looked cool from the back too, when you could see light shining through. So getting into a more sculptural, three-dimensional way of thinking about my work. So this was how I presented the work for the artist opening. It couldn't stay there forever because they have too many weddings there, and I didn't want to block the stairwell, but it's been moved to another location. You can still go and see it. And you can visit it while I work on the sister piece, and eventually there'll be two. And of course, you can still visit the prayer room piece again. And yeah, I would look forward to hearing what people think about the poem and about the state and the work in general. So thanks so much for listening. And yeah, thanks Heather for inviting me to speak.
Just wonderful, Tabitha. Thank you so much for sharing the story behind these works. And let's all follow Tabitha in the process of finishing out the series and the touch response piece, which is going to be such a special and audience engagement aspect to your work. So we'll move along in the interest of getting through everyone. Our next speaker is Margarita Hagan, who will be joined by Terri Saulin as part of her presentation. And Margarita, you can go ahead and pop your slides up if you would, while I introduce you. Margarita Hagan is a ceramic sculptor based in Philadelphia. Her projects include collaborations with artists, scientists, and community, environmental art and science residencies, lectures, and exhibits. Terri Saulin is an artist working in clay in Philadelphia and the owner of number 5 Butchie Alley, which is an outgrowth of Terri's studio in South Philly. So Margarita, I'll now invite you to tell us about your work on view at the Academy of Natural Sciences, which is what we're seeing now, and then your show with Terri at number 5 Butchie Alley. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Layla, CraftNOW, and to you, Heather, for your coordinating, and to everybody for being here. I'll be sharing this work. As you can see, it's at the Invisible World of Water at the Academy of Natural Sciences. And the piece that I made here is called Flourish, and it's an homage to the wonder of diatoms in the Academy's diatom collection and its matriarch, as well as the Victorian diatom arrangements and snowflakes. Not advancing, come on. There we go. So the Academy is the world's 2nd largest diatom collection, and it was started by Ruth Patrick, who is being honored in the exhibit, as well as in my piece, Flourish. Invisible World of Water is curated by Marina Potapov, and it focuses on diatoms and snow crystals. It's a very complex show, and I can't go into all the details on it, but I really encourage everyone to go. It's a beautiful show. This piece here is my daughter cells, and it's an abstraction of single cell reproduction, and it's celebrating thriving and growth. And I really want to acknowledge Lauren Duguid, who is for her gorgeous work installing the work in the exhibit, and she's the Academy's designer, and also for the great support from Jennifer Sanchi, who's the senior exhibitions director. So this case of diatoms includes a new piece that I made for the show, the very mysterious Campylodissus. It's a mind-bending diatom. So here's a second case of diatom, and they're magnifying and giving visual voice to these exquisite organisms that house plankton and photosynthesize 1/4 of the oxygen for our planet. They live in fresh water, marine waters, and even in the moisture in their soil. So Ernst Haeckel's plate from Art Forms in Nature that was first published in 1899 is hanging above this case. And in the case is the actual book, Art Forms in Nature. And it's open to a page that actually sparked my Lemaire series that started just 6 years ago. It's thrilling to be in the case with Ernst Haeckel. He's a scientist, artist, and philosopher from the 19th century that helped to illuminate so many microorganisms and much of nature. So the piece Flourish is placed in the historic reading room, which houses their archives, and it's not typically open to the public, but during this exhibit, it's adjoining the gallery, and it can be seen in special tours on the 1st and 3rd Fridays of the month from 11 to 4, and if you come see the show with me. So my work is placed next to the portrait of Ruth Patrick, and she lived 105 amazing years. She was a world authority on freshwater ecosystems and set the stage for the modern environmental movement. She advocated for an integrated, holistic approach to waterway health in her groundbreaking work in ecology. So now I'm going to share a few process highlights behind the work Flourish. I researched diatoms in snow and ice, and also diatoms that were named by and for Ruth Patrick and the current curator of the diatom collection, Marina Potapov. This work was done, this piece was done over about 5 to 6 months of work. So here's Dr. Marina Potapov, and I am so thankful that she was my diatom lifeline call. And I went to visit her at the Academy and got to see some of the collection in person a number of times. And she sent me images when I was working on some very complicated species, and she really saved me. On the right is a picture of skeleton Nema. It's a drawing from the 1800s. And I just love this piece so much that it's made its way into the piece Flourish. And there it is in my drawing on the right. On this side, that is the matriarch homage, and on the left are the diatoms that are from Snow and Ice. So here I am starting in clay. Quick little peek at just started with the centered, made the diatoms, each of them that lived and related to the snow and ice. And then I moved on to the next side for all these diatoms named for and by Ruth Patrick and Marina Potapov. When you're a diatomist, you get to name diatoms, and sometimes they're named for you. You also can name them for people, just like astronomers name stars. Here in the very last stages, I had to do the final building on the kiln shelf. And there it is, making its way into the kiln for the very first soft bisque. I work in earthenware for this sculpture. And the little supporting diatoms here were done from drawings from Ernst Haeckel. And that little round one is Marina's favorite, one of her favorite diatoms, called Discotella. Here it had a happy, successful first soft bisque. It's always a relief to get something out of that first firing. And then I airbrushed white underglaze over all the surfaces. And then it went back into the kiln. And then I airbrushed and hand painted that intense green glaze as a clear glaze that comes out. It went back into the kiln. And at that point, it had to be supported on stilts, so the glaze wouldn't fuse to anything. Then I did the crazy looking blue as mother pearl luster that I hand painted on. It went back into a final firing, and the silver leaf is for the steel rods and the posts that I fabricated. So the Tidal Flourish is references the ancient symbol of sacred geometry, the flower of life, and its feminine energy embodies the cycle of creation and the blueprint and interconnectedness of the universe. So here's the legend, and the legend, it lists all the diatoms and the species and the habitat and their geographical range. So thank you so much. And I hope that you can visit the show. It'll be up through April 17th. And please email me if you would like to see it with me. And once again, if you just go in, you won't be able to see this piece flourish unless you go on those special dates or you are with me. Thank you. Now I hand it off to Terri.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting Margarita and I to participate this evening, and thanks to everyone for coming. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about number 5 Butchie Alley, which is basically my garage. You can see when I basically first moved into South Philly, I had a garage that I inherited from the people I bought my house from, Quintina and Mario Meloragna, that was basically full of their concrete working enterprises. They made cast concrete things. So I had tons of things in the garage that took a really long time to get rid of. But when I moved into the house in the 90s, I had this vision that I could do something really special with it if I ended up buying the house, which I thankfully could do. Margarita can change. When I was in graduate school, at UArts, I worked with Bill Walton, who's my mentor also at Moore College of Art and Design. And when he visited a few times, he was like, "You got a lot of house here, kid. You can pretty much do anything you want here and never have to leave." So some of the inspirations were the house shows that Bill Walton used to have in his studio. After Bill passed, they rebuilt part of his studio in the ICA. And the closing was this thing called Gifting the Studio, where visitors came and all exchanged stories about Bill and took little pieces from the installation. Another inspiration was also the Venus grottos that Ludwig II, the Bavarian king, built in his castle. So it was kind of like this secret little place that was separate from everything, that you could kind of have this other amazing thing happen. So this is the first show that I had that opened up New Year's Eve of last year. The space was pretty much just about finished this time last year, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So New Year's Eve, I just had an epiphany that I was just gonna have a show called 5 Inches Apart because we all wanted to be a little closer. So I basically went through every drawer that I had collected work from friends and exchanges through a print exchange I had with Tiger Strike's Asteroid members, where I'm also a member, and just hung up the work and had a surprise online show for everyone that I've collected work from. The second show was with Kathy Halton. Kathy and I went to Moore a decade apart and then ended up working together at the Agnes Irwin School and became best of friends. So Kathy was the first exhibition that we had. Part of the way that I have the exhibitions is that the shows are up for approximately 2 months. And at the midpoint of each exhibition, the artist will do a workshop, and we invite participants to come and have a great, wonderful afternoon. I'm a former chef, so I make a big lunch for everyone. So it's a really nice event. That's actually part of the best thing about having this happen. I'm kind of doing it like flying by the seat of my pants, kind of building it as I go. But the best part has been the community that's been built through having the workshops and meeting people coming into the space. The next show was Nancy Agati, someone that I went to graduate school with, also a former educator who taught at the Haverford School. This was also the first exhibition where we were able to have some live music featuring Andrew Chalfin, who's also a painter and member of In Liquid Gallery. And hence our current show with Margarita and myself. Margarita and I met virtually, basically kind of falling in love with each other's work on the internet. And we met when she had a show at PAFA, and I was invited by the organizers of the show to assist her in the pit firing that she was having at PAFA. And I, of course, immediately said, oh, good God, yes. And Margarita and I have become best of friends. So this is an exhibition of both of our work together. We both have 3 bodies of work. Margarita has her micro Lumiere sculptures, her pit-fired rongorongas, and her beautiful tableware that is based on petroglyphs. And I have my own work that is some sculptural forms in porcelain, and also some stoneware, cups, and some functional ware, and some pieces that were made specifically for flowers. So Margarita, if do you want to talk a bit about some of these slides as you go along? You're muted.
Go. Okay, thank you. So in addition to the petroglyphs, which range from Neolithic era, which is the birth of craft, they're stunning, around the whole world is also, my other line is primary producers and things from the sea. So this is a piece that I did for a marine ecologist, and it's a deep sea coral. They look like a Las Vegas showgirls, but anyway, here's some more tableware. There's some local PA petroglyphs over here, and the sea anyway. And these are the rongorongos. They've had great joy of taking these glyphs carved into tablets from Easter Island, and it's an independent language, never been deciphered. Even living Rapa Nui on Easter Island don't know it, but it means incised for chanting out. They appear on tablets in rows, and they must be like their prayers or their chants, but I've been sculpting them in a little petite size and larger ones, and didn't feel like I could paint them, but I thought the fire could paint them, and the pit firing was the best way to do that. So they go in white, and you don't know how they're going to come out, but this is a little group of them I made for this show. Terry and I are going to do a pit firing workshop, and so Terry, I don't know if you want to say anything.
the two in the upper right corner are the first two pieces I ever pit fired with Margarita. So that was pretty exciting. That was a result of the workshop that I assisted her with. The workshop that we're gonna have will be on New Year's Day. So if you're feeling wild and crazy and you wanna light stuff on fire and watch mummers, my house is the place to be for the pit firing. It'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, all the information is on Terri's website and on mine too, but we'll be doing our clay work first on Wednesday, the 29th from noon to 4. And then the pit firing is New Year's Day, noon to 4, which will also have great, beautiful food made for it and some celebratory sips. And then the next day on the 2nd, we'll be revealing the work out of the pit. And we'll be doing it right in the alley. It'll be fantastic, right outside the gallery. So yeah, these are my, from my Lemaire series, microorganisms. It's hard to understand the scale, but they are one cell, so you only can see them through a microscope, but they support our entire planet. And I have a great joy of making them, magnifying them for the world. These are drawings from my sketchbook that I had printed on glass, and they are at the number 5 Butchie Alley. The drawings from my sketchbook, and there's a picture of Flourish. Terri.
This is a body of work that was made that's inspired by reading the book Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino, but they're also inspired by my mom. My mom passed away, and a lot of the pieces have these sort of loop-like forms, which refer to blankets that my mom crocheted over the years. This is a series of work that were created specifically for magnolias, and like a little love letter thank you to the Van Morrison song, The Way Young Lovers Do. Mm-hmm. These little luster gem pots popped up. Another reference to my mom, you know, when someone passes away, you often accumulate a lot of things. And one of the things that, you know, is often hard to part with is jewelry and what to do with it. So when my mom passed, she had a lot of costume jewelry. So I made a lot of press molds out of those, like little sprig molds, like as in Wedgwood would use on pottery, and then applied those to some of the pieces. This is a series of distressed cups. Who wasn't feeling distressed lately? But it's basically layers and layers of underglaze that are sanded through and fired a few times that make a really nice rich surface. And then these are whiskey sips, because I needed a little whiskey over the last 2 years as well.
They're so beautiful.
And then this is another little note about our pit firing workshop on New Year's Day. Sculpting Day is December 29th.
So you can, sorry about that. You can register, sorry about that. You can, I'll just stop sharing. You can register with Terri on her site, and there are a few spots left, but it is a limited, so love to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Margarita and Terri. This is all so exciting. I'm learning a ton, and I can't wait to check out your gallery, Terri. So Laura, if you'd like to just go ahead and start the process of sharing your screen, I'll introduce you and Miriam. Laura Igoe is Chief Curator at the Michener Museum in Doylestown. And tonight she'll be featuring 2 exhibitions currently on view at the Michener, both of which I highly recommend. Laura will talk about daring design, the impact of 3 women on Wharton Esherick's craft. And then she'll be joined by artist Miriam Carpenter to discuss the exhibition Miriam Carpenter Shaping the Ethereal, a solo exhibition of Miriam's work. Miriam Carpenter is a contemporary artist and designer based in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and her work explores the possibilities within materials as she seeks to create new forms and solve challenging design problems through her work. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Laura and Miriam.
Thank you, Heather. It's great to be here. And yes, as Heather said, I'll be talking about two exhibitions that are currently up at the Michener Art Museum in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. It's a great time to visit the museum if you are into woodworking, furniture design, and awesome women. So first, I'm going to talk about Daring Design, the impact of 3 women on Wharton Esherick's craft, which is on view now until February 6, 2022. And it is curated by me and the artist Mark Safiri. So this exhibition explores the significant impact of 3 women, Helena Fischer, Hanna Weil, and Marjorie Content, on the artistic development and career of sculptor and studio craftsman Wharton Esherick in the 1930s. So some of you might be familiar with Wharton Esherick, especially his uniquely designed studio in Chester County that is now owned and operated by the Wharton Esherick Museum. And there's an interior shot of the museum, of his studio. So Esherick challenged the traditional separation of fine and decorative arts and has been christened the Dean of American Craftsmen for his designs. But he's also frequently perceived as, a rugged individualist living a hermit-like existence in his rural hillside studio. The exhibition Daring Design reconnects him with the patrons and friends that inspired and encouraged his early innovative work. His first significant patron was Helena Fischer, a businesswoman who served as chief executive officer of the Schutte and Curting Manufacturing Company, and later as the company's chair of the board. She commissioned a series of really exciting and innovative furniture for her home, including this end table, which is in the exhibition, that really pushed the boundaries between expressionist sculpture and functional furniture design and resulted in some of his most iconic works. She also commissioned Esherick to design furniture for the boardroom of Schutte and Curting, and the boardroom table, an armchair, and a side chair are on display in the exhibition as well. And actually, the chairs became known as SK chairs for Schutte Curting and became a really iconic design for Esherick going forward. These are on loan to us from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and they're very rarely on view, as many things actually in this exhibition are very rarely on view because they come from, a lot come from private collections as well. So definitely worth a visit because you might not see these again for a while. Through Helene Fischer, Esherick met Hanna Weil, a German expressionist artist celebrated for her ivory carvings, and I'm just showing you 2 exquisite examples here on the right. Esherick made a number of drawings, prints, carved wooden utensils, and furniture for Weil, including this work table that you see her sitting at on the left. He made this table for her when he was visiting her in Holzhausen, Germany. And the table, which is here, a more contemporary image of it, is also in the exhibition. And then the third woman featured in the show is Marjorie Content, another significant patron of Esherick's work. She was a photographer that was deeply connected to the New York City avant-garde scene in the 1920s and 30s. She was friends with many writers and artists, including Alfred Stieglitz and Georgia O'Keeffe. So Content met Esherick through the ceramicist Henry Varnum Poor, and she visited him at his home and studio on the way during her summer trips to the Southwest in the 1930s. So this photograph is by her on the right, showing a building on Wharton Esherick's property. Content commissioned several important Esherick works for her New York City apartment and later for her Doylestown home, where she moved with her husband, writer Jean Toomer. And so this bedroom suite that I'm showing you here, which Esherick created for Content, continued his experiment with prismatic angular forms. And here's a quick shot of the bed and the vanity on the right in the exhibition. And that wooden piece that's on the wall is actually a headboard that he that kind of slotted in on the side here. Marjorie Content was unhappy with this being the current headboard. So we made an additional one for her. And we also have this letter by Content in the show to Esherick, which shows how involved she was in the design process of these works. You can see that she's sketched out the vanity. We believe she's probably working from a maquette that she brought back to New York to test out the size of the vanity and how it fit in her apartment. And so she has comments on measurements and design and, you know, what she thinks would go with this piece. And so it just shows that she was not, and none of these women were passive consumers of modern design. They were really, you know, actively involved and also dictating to some of the designs as well. And I also find some very strong visual resonances between, for example, the bed and drawers, and Content's own photographs at the time, like this undulating canyon photograph that she would have made, you know, during a summer trip while stopping at Esherick's on the way there and back from the Southwest. So Esherick would have been familiar with these photographs and might have been inspired by them when designing pieces for Content. So featuring innovative furniture pieces designed by Esherick for Fisher, Weil, and Content, as well as artwork created by Weil and Content, Daring Design investigates the visual and material dialogue between these artists and patrons. And there's also a catalog written by Mark Sapiri and I that's available for purchase in our gift shop. And just to conclude this moment, I just want to say that there's also a great selfie moment with the vanity in Daring Design. So it's a good spot to take your picture as well. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Miriam Carpenter, and she's going to talk about her work and process. We have a number of pieces up by her in the current exhibition, Miriam Carpenter Shaping the Ethereal. So I will pass it to you, Miriam, and I'll forward your slides.
All right, great, thank you, Laura. I'd like to highlight a few of these pieces. Although most of my work is one-off, over the past 9 years, I've developed an evolving series of delicately carved wooden feathers. The complex structure found in certain species of wood presents a dramatic visual texture and a challenge to create sweeping lines through varying densities. Shaping the form defines the tools I can use and an order to the process. I must work slowly and diligently, holding the piece in the palm of my hand so that I can feel the wood move, bend, stretch, and release. Next. I begin with a solid block of wood and then carve through the material until I reach a very thin, uniform thickness. Next. And finally use a scalpel to articulate the fine detail. Next. These feathers were created using the same species of wood, but carved in a different orientation relative to the direction of a standing tree. Next. Here's one of those feathers completed. Next. And they're displayed in a wall hanging, each in wall hanging holly boxes with sliding glass on the front to protect. Next. This feather is carved out of figured ash. Next. And here it is finished. Next. This is a piece of English oak burl that I used to carve my largest feather yet, which measures 24 inches tip to tip and 34 inches high with the display. Next. This is part of the process. Next. And further along in the process. Next. And a detail of the sterling silver stanchion and the base assembly. Next. The feather symbolizes that which is ethereal, the soul and contemplation, and is deeply complex within the framework of a simple form. This feather in English oak burl is now part of the permanent collection of the Michener Art Museum. Next. That's the back side and the side. And I began work on a console table in the fall of 2020. The base of the console table is inspired by the visual representation of a musical interval or difference in pitch between two sounds. To achieve this shape, I assembled, hand-carved, and shaped 14 pieces of soft maple. The piece is titled The Second Overtone. Next. The wood selection process begins with searching for the right top. I chose the spalted maple piece in the middle. Next. And this is the beginning of the base construction with the rough cut wood and templates. Next. Compound angles and joinery needed to be cut before I began shaping and assembling. Next. This is part of the assembly process. Next. I used a variety of hand tools to complete the detail shaping along the edges of the base. Next. And inlaid aluminum supports on the underside of the tabletop to stabilize and connect the base. Next. So this console table was created this past April. It measures 30.5 high by 56 long and 18 inches deep. Next. Here's a view of the spalted maple top. Next. And the base is ebonized and finished with a hand rubbed tung oil. Next. And a detail of the pinkish patinated bronze little standoffs that separate the top from the base. Next. My most recent work was completed this October. It's a pair of end tables in which I sought to encourage viewers to interact and discover the work from all sides. And here are a few examples of some of the many maquette sketches that were made before refining the design, as you see in the image to the bottom right. Next. Each half of the end tables weighed over 100 pounds before it was carved. Next. I used a CNC machine to rough out part of the material. Next. And this was the result coming off of the machine. Next. And about 500 hours later, I had finished carving and sanding the halves of each table so they were ready for the inside to be painted. Next. After the inside and top and bottom were painted with a gloss white enamel, I was ready to begin work on the outer faces. Next. In which I designed a pattern to be painted in semi-transparent layers for the outer surfaces of the table. Next. This is part of the layering process. Next. And the final surface. Next. Title of this work is Drop. It measures 18 by 18 by 22 high. Next. And next. Next. I believe that over time, my studio practice will continue to be one of evoking curiosity and of exploration. My practice is one of outreach and of introspection. It's about shifting perspective and creating opportunities, and is the clearest way I can share the best parts of myself with the world in the most responsible and impactful way I know how. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Miriam and Laura. The process shots have been some of my favorite parts of this. So thank you for the sneak peek, those of you who have shared those. Let's see, I'm sharing slides for our final presenter of the evening. So let me get these. So our final speaker of the evening is Pam Mclean Parker, who is the exhibition and program coordinator at the Wayne Art Center in Wayne, Pennsylvania, who will share Craft Forms 2021, the 26th International Juried Exhibition of Contemporary Fine Craft, showcasing works in basketry, ceramics, fiber, furniture, glass, jewelry, metal, mixed media, paper, wearable art, and wood. Also on display is this year's Craft Forms companion show, The Process of Becoming, the jewelry collection of Carolyn L. E. Benesh, narrating the story of a life fueled by a passion for the created object and friendships that were formed in the process. So Pam, you say the word and I will get the slides going.
Terrific. Heather, thank you for screen sharing for me, and thanks to CraftNOW for having us tonight, this opportunity to share what's coming up here at Wayne Art Center as we celebrate the return of Craft Forms is fantastic. And I see a lot of Craft Forms artists here attending tonight. So to you all, I hope we'll see you tomorrow night. We appreciate that you're here with CraftNOW tonight. We are hosting 3 stunning exhibitions that will all open to the public from December 4th through January 29. And all 3 of these kick off tomorrow night at our Craft Forms preview party. Tomorrow night's event is a ticketed event, and information about it can be found at craftforms.org online. Indulge me first in a little bit of history, because as Heather said, this is our 26th year. It is a beloved tradition and exhibition that began in 1994 when our executive director, Nancy Campbell, and fellow board member Frank McPherson envisioned hosting a contemporary craft exhibition. Through its early years, it was a humble beginning, but it has evolved into an internationally recognized exhibition that draws talent from all over the globe. We acknowledge past distinguished jurors, including Paul Smith, Michael Monroe, David McFadden, Jane Maloche, Bruce Pepich, and other esteemed jurors over the last 26 years who have afforded Wayne Arts Center the opportunity to bring contemporary craft to our community. So this year, just as every other year, at its heart, Craft Forums is dedicated to enhancing the public's awareness for contemporary craft. And it provides a venue for local, national, and international craft artists. And always this is made possible through, have to let you all know, generous sponsors, patrons, our volunteers, our Craft Forums committee, and the amazing staff here at the Art Center. So I want to be sure to thank everybody who made this a reality for 2021. This year's Craft Forums really began back in spring, late spring this year, when the call for entry for Craft Forums 2021 went out. And through the middle of September, we accepted submissions online. Nearly 500 artists from 45 states and 14 international countries submitted their work for juror consideration. This year's Craft Forums juror has been Carol Savignon of Craft in America. And Carol has selected the work that comprises Craft Forums. She's joining us this weekend, and she will be here to choose the work for awards tomorrow, as well as join us for our preview party. And on Saturday afternoon, she'll participate in our gallery talks. If you want info on the gallery talks, which are wonderful part of our opening weekend, I highly suggest that you check us out online. That is at 1 p.m. Saturday. So about the work that Carol selected and what her thoughts were, I noted that in her comments about jurying, that she was, quote, struck by the inventiveness and mastery of technique that the excellent applications exhibited. She had her work cut out for her. She had a couple thousand images to look at from all those artists. And so it's our great congratulations to the artist whose work has been selected for this exhibition. She has selected work, 88 original works are on view from 83 artists. And this work represents what people are making in 28 states and 4 countries. It is a broad expression of medium, including this first beautiful piece under our logo here. Thank you, Heather, for sharing this one. This one is a work in metal. It is called All Dressed Up and Nowhere to Go. It is by Mary Kay Palazzo of Ohio. And you can go to the next image. We also accept work in ceramics. This piece in Craft Forums 2021 is called Purple Grain Jar. It is by Dennis Gerwin of North Carolina. Next. In fiber, we have a full gallery of beautiful work. I am here at Wayne Arts Center right now, and that gorgeous piece by Claire Nichols called Ghost Ladder is over my shoulder in the gallery here. Claire is from Philadelphia. You can go ahead. Another Philadelphia artist represented in Craft Forums 2021 is Anna Booth. This is her piece called Laurel Berry. Next. We have beautiful jewelry on view that Carol has selected for this exhibition. This piece is called Environmental Deconstruction of the Tillamook Rainforest. It is by Ariel Brackett of Oregon. Next. Rainmaker is in our mixed media category, and it is by Jake Martin of Virginia. Next. In paper, in the gallery right now, we have this work framed on view here. It is called Sheltered. It is cut with scissors. It is a one continuous piece of paper that has been cut by Lucretia Beeler of Florida. In the next category for Craft Forums, we have work in wood. And this example is David Bonhoeff's David's from Virginia, and this piece is called Drake Tail. The next piece represents a couple of small works that are hung side by side. They're in our 3D printing category. And that's just a little view of what's happening here at the gallery. Our juror will really have her work cut out for her. When she visits tomorrow, she will be choosing the pieces for the awards in Craftforms, and collectively $10,000 of awards are handed out to these fabulous pieces. So it'll be interesting to see this time tomorrow what has spoken to her in person. If you can't join us tomorrow night, you're going to want to come before the 29th of January and see Craftforms in this gallery where I am, the Davenport. And you'll also be able to visit the exhibition that will be on display in our Ethel Sargent Clark Smith Gallery. That is our companion show. Heather was mentioning we have the Process of Becoming, and that is the jewelry collection of Carolyn Ellie Benish. It is showcasing Carolyn's collection. It's narrating really the passion in her life for forming the friendships with those artists and artisans that she met. And she did so along the way as a founding co-editor of Ornament magazine. She's pictured there with her husband, Robert Liu, and their son, Patrick Benish Liu. And with Ornament, they celebrated always, and still do, the tradition of wearable expression in that publication. As Carolyn fulfilled the mission of Ornament, which is to educate, inform, and inspire, for over 40 years, she researched and featured countless established and emerging artists and in Ornament magazine, and she supported their interests and their talent by purchasing their art. And it resulted in this really rich, very meaningful personal collection of jewelry. And she published hundreds of articles about artists along the way and spoke about them and their work in museums and other organizations. She served on the board of directors for Craft in America, and she served as juror for many national craft shows. When she passed away in 2020, she left behind a rich legacy in the publishing and art worlds. So the current editors, Robert and Patrick, and her family, prepared and researched 100 pieces from Carolyn's personal collection. And that is what is here at Wayne Art Center in the Process of Becoming. The exhibition was conceived of by Wayne Art Center Craftforms jurors past and present, Jane Meloche and Carol Savignon. And it was supported as well by Emily Zayden, who is director and lead curator of Craft in America Center. And this exhibition has been sponsored both by Wayne Art Center and by Craft in America. When you visit us to see this show, you will see among the 100 pieces, this piece, which is a pin. It's called Hydro Top. It is by Ford and Furlano. You can go to the next image. These beautiful brooches are by Kim Kelzer and Marcia McDonald. We're showing 5-element rock necklace by Jan Yeager. The next in Carolyn's collection is this Yemeni prayer scroll pendant by Yemeni. Also on view.
From the Yemen. That's
Yep.
not the person, that's the country where it was made.
Yep. This cloud necklace and 2 dragonfly brooches are by Christina Anna Eustace. And this shell bracelet is another example of a piece from Carolyn's collection, and this was made by Sylvia Gottwald. And all of this will also remain on view through January 29. In addition to Craftforms and the Process of Becoming, we are featuring large abstract works on canvas, panel, and paper in our Attraction to Abstraction, which appears in our lobby galleries. So we have art in both our galleries and art that stretches from one end of the building to the next. And that includes the work of 20 area artists and our exhibition juror, Val Rossman. This is Val's piece called Battle is Internal. So many reasons to visit us this winter, and we hope that you'll come and join us and see all that we have been working on here at the Art Center. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you.
It was delightful. We've been so good. We kept like exactly an hour. Dream team here. I see lots of wonderful comments and congratulations to the artists and curators who've spoken this evening. I don't see any questions here, but I think what we can do, if that's all right, Layla, is allow everyone to end the program by unmuting and greeting one another, and perhaps a question could come out of there. And I'm going to repost all of the links for all of these in the chat so you can check them out. So thanks everyone for joining us. It's been such a pleasure, and I wish you a peaceful rest of the evening.
That's a great idea, Heather. Thank you. Thank you. Those were some amazing presentations. I especially loved all the process shots from the artists and the installation views from all the curators. And yes, definitely, please unmute yourself, say hello. I posted some links to our website as well. And remember that we have a program, especially for the artists and the entrepreneurial artists and makers and craft artists, crafters, of course, in the audience. The PA Council on the Arts has just launched a new grant called the Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator. And part of the process of applying for the grant is doing some business planning through some of the small business development centers. So on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we have the GPCA and the Enterprise Center talking about the referral process and the grant application. Yeah, so basically you're being paid to write a little business plan for yourself, which is really great. I'm going to change the view to gallery. So if we don't have any questions or comments, then we can all start to say good night and goodbye, and we'll see you on Tuesday or see you at the fire pit. Well, we'll see you tomorrow at Wayne Art Center, and then we'll see you visiting all of the galleries and at the fire pit at New Year's, which is crazy. That's like, Terri is right around the corner from me, so I might, if I'm in town on New Year's, I can just march on over there and say hello.
It's a perfect way to stay warm outside too.
And even if you're not taking the workshop, I'll probably have some soup on.
Yeah.
And she's on 13th Street, which is a block away from Broad Street, where the Mummers will be.
That's right.
That's that whole block, right?
Yeah.
Decorations.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Hi, Ruth and Rick.
Hi.
We loved it.
And we'll try to come Sunday for the Wayne Art Center. We have some things in Old City going on Saturday and Friday, but we'll definitely get there. Looking forward to it.
Noon tonight. It was really great body of presentations. Wonderful because it ferrets out the things that you don't get to see in the business that you think of as craft that you thought you knew, but in fact you didn't know. So that's really a wonderful part of this, that ferreting out these special kinds of, I mean, I hadn't thought about diatoms probably since I was in high school. But you know, and my wife asked me, what's a diatom? I said, well, I can tell it's a microscopic creature, but in the hands of Margarita, it was actually a lively and beautiful thing.
Nice.
And, and I think the other aspect of the Wharton Esherick dovetailing into what Miriam was doing was interesting too. I mean, the relationship of these forms and using wood in these very expressive ways is something that I don't know if anybody from the Center for Art and Wood was watching. I hope that Nava was watching this show, because I think I'm going to have a meeting with her on Monday. But I certainly want her to take a look at some of this work. And actually, we're hoping that Bob Abel's son Joshua is going to join the board of the Center for Art and Wood, because I think the idea would be, how can we create something with the Wood Center, which is what it's called now, to expand the vision and take it into much more of a narrative idea. I mean, this was a thing that was cycled so many years ago by artists. when the images were shown of, was it Marjorie Content, the photographer of Esherick? It was a time when people like Esherick were part of that scene of major artists in America. They weren't marginalized in the field of crafts, as it were. They were part of that larger scene. And you know, people that were living in New York at that time, like Lenore Tawney, was a friend of Agnes Martin's. I mean, it wasn't like they were in different fields of the arts. They were in the arts, and their expressiveness was a collaborative activity. So I think this is kind of bringing that back into reality again. Nice to see it happening, and thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Rick and I have a little bit of color I see on this screen.
Yeah.
He just had a little bit of wine, and look how red his nose got. And me too. We're not alcoholics, I promise you. Just a tiny little bit.
Loosened you up. And look, right here, Mary is giving us another glass of wine here on the screen.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, on that note, we should all go pour a little glass of wine and make our nose red. Like,
We'll have a little more.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you,
Thanks all.
everyone.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
day.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.